Welcome to ProteaConversations, the podcast where leadership in business and accounting isn't just discussed, it's explored. I'm your host, Zane Stevens, and thank you for joining me as we delve into the minds of some of the most influential leaders in the industry. Our journey is one of discovery, from unraveling the unique stories that shaped our guest careers to invaluable advice that fueled their success. We're here to provide you with simple, actionable advice to accelerate your career and personal growth. Whether you're a budding professional or a seasoned executive, these conversations are designed to offer insight and perspectives that resonate with everyone. So tune in, engage, and be inspired as we build better leaders together. Welcome to ProteaConversations. Today I'm thrilled to be joined by Vipul Seth, Managing Director of AdvancedTrack Outsourcing. Vipul is an inspiring leader with a transformative perspective on the role of accountants. Accountants can change lives, but not by producing a set of accounts. With a career spanning Rab Johns, Ernst & Young, KPMG, Vipul brings a wealth of experience as an ICAEW chartered accountant and chartered tax advisor. Since founding AdvancedTrack in 2003, he has dedicated himself to helping accountants globally deliver more value to their clients through world-class outsourcing and offshoring services. In this episode, we'll explore Vipul's journey, his passion for enabling accountants to focus on value-added services, and how AdvancedTrack is driving change in the industry with cutting-edge technology, ISO certifications, and GDPR compliance. Whether you're an accountant, a business owner, or just curious about the impact of outsourcing in the accounting world, this conversation is packed with insights and you won't want to miss it. Vipul, welcome. It's really great to have you on the episode today.
Thank you so much, Zane. Really looking forward to having this conversation.
What's exciting for me is you're my first international guest. So that's a little landmark for me, the first person that is not based in the US.
Okay.
Can you sort of spell out to people sort of where in the world we can find you?
Yeah, so I'm about a 20-minute train ride from London. So that's where I now live. Grew up in the Midlands. If anyone knows the UK, I grew up in a town called Coventry, which was our equivalent of the Motor City way back when. So just to put in context, the sort of environment that I grew up in.
You enjoy any of the local sports teams while growing up?
Yeah, I went to watch Coventry City a lot, although I wasn't a fan, but I loved the sport. So it was a good excuse for me and a few friends to go and watch a soccer match every Saturday. So probably did 3-4 years where I was there every home game, pretty much on a Saturday. So we have something called relegation and promotions. And there were 3 seasons in a row Coventry City almost got relegated, sometimes when it wasn't even in their hands, but they knew they had to win. And then it was up to the gods if the other team won or lost as to whether they stayed up. So, but when you love the game, you don't care who it is that you watch, as long as you're watching it. And when you see it with friends, it makes it all the more enjoyable.
Yeah, definitely a bucket list item for me is to get over to the UK and watch a soccer game. I'd love to watch my beloved Chelsea, but I will take anyone that I can get into.
Yeah, no, as I say, 20-odd games a season I got to experience. So, yeah, definitely worth it. And why I'm probably still passionate about watching the game, not as much playing it as I used to be. So I'm sure we'll cover that at some point during this session.
I mean, I'd love to just talk about soccer for the whole hour. I'm a big, passionate supporter, and I love coaching my kids nowadays. So it's a big part of my life, soccer. But we probably need to talk about the boring stuff being our careers. So probably a good place to get going into. And obviously, you are the managing director of AdvancedTrack Outsourcing, which has been extremely successful now for a really long time. You've been running that company for as long as I've been studying and working in accounting. So it's got a long history of success. And I want to get into that. But let's go back a little bit further and discuss the decision to get into accounting in the first place.
Okay. Well, I grew up in the family business. So the family had a store selling fashion clothing. And if I'm honest, as a teenager, that's what I thought I was going to do. And until that whole idea was really knocked on the head by my parents, who said that actually you need to get an education. So once you've got an education, if you decide that's what you want to do, then come and have that discussion. And so that was at 15. And then at 17, I think my mother was like, this lad, what's he going to do? And then, unbeknown to me, volunteered me to work for a summer for free for her family accountant, for hers and, the business's accountant.
Yeah.
And so I went along. And obviously, as a teenager, you're skeptical of everything. So, well, what am I going to learn, Mum, by going to work in an accountant's office? And I described everything that I thought an accountant did. And of course, once you get there, and unbeknown to me, he was quite an entrepreneurial accountant who really believed in looking after clients and talking to them regularly. He explained to me what an accountant really did, because my mum had said to me, look, whenever I go and see David, his feet on the desk, phone attached to his ear, I usually have to wait till he's finished the call, and then I'm allowed to go in. Okay, yes, Mum. Of course, that's. And my answer was, I didn't really believe a word that she said. And I was sat there 2 days opposite his office. And of course, that's what I noticed. That's what I saw him doing. So, of course, after a day or two, I go and knock on his door. But David, I see, can I ask you a question? Walked in, said, I don't see you doing accounts. And at that point, he said, let me close the door, and said, see all those people out there? That's what I pay them to do. What I do is change lives. And, you read out my, accountant change lives, but not by producing a set of accounts. It comes from that conversation that I had with him as that 17-year-old. And I am a product of that. My parents, he helped them be more successful, which gave me the confidence that I could go out in the world without necessarily seeing lots of limits. Obviously, as you get older, you see more limits. But as a teenager, you don't see limits. And that's the confidence that he was able to sort of have me take forward from that experience of working with him and his colleagues as to what happens in life. But from that, obviously, you go on, have a degree, qualified as a chartered accountant with Rab Johns before going to two big four firms, EY and KPMG. And then I had this mad idea and said to my dad, I've got this idea, what do you reckon? Because he arrived here with nothing, because his attitude to risk is very different to most parents. And it was like, well, if you think you can do it, get on a plane and make it happen. And so for the last 20 odd years, we've been trying to make it happen. So that's our journey, or my journey.
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible story, and it's not often that you would hear somebody say that this is a piece of advice I received at such an early age. People get it from their family and stuff, but this is just some random third person, right? Obviously impactful in your parents' life, so your mom wasn't crazy by putting you in front of it. She knew it would have an impact on you.
Yeah.
But however many years later, that piece of advice is still what drives you is incredible.
Yeah. Well, look, business and the country, or whatever, your local community will be more successful if you have more successful entrepreneurs who earn money, spend money in the locality, etc., etc. And, and all of us are in our own little communities, but communities all over the country, suddenly your country's more successful. So I think that's the way that I look at it. That I'd like to think that my success is I employ hundreds of people. They're now spending money in their communities, and the world is a better place. And hopefully there are accountants out there who are helping business owners be more successful by having that same attitude and approach to their business.
I mean, this is extremely forward-thinking. Just to sort of put a perspective to this. This is advice you're receiving in the 80s, right?
Yeah. I mean, as I say, I was a young kid.
I mean, it's mind-blowing that there was an accountant out there, because your stereotype that you had in your head was clearly the sit behind the desk, thumb through the tax return, just sort of work through, which is the way the accounting industry was definitely framed at that point. And from my understanding, and it's hard for me to put perspective to it, but just from the information I get, advisory wasn't a big deal like back then, right? Like advisory came from people other than accountants back then. So for an accountant to think of themselves, and probably maybe he's not using the word advisor, but that's what he was.
Yeah.
He was advising people to be successful, using their information that they're providing, making it as accurate as possible, and helping them be successful. That's mind-blowingly impressive.
The one thing that he did, and for the younger members of the audience, you may have to go and Google this, is something called a Rolodex. And he had one of those, and he said to me, Vipul, every morning I come in and I phone the next person on the list. And he did that. And he was their professional friend. Yeah.
Wow.
My mother never made a major decision. Yeah. Obviously, you make lots of small decisions, but the big decisions that had a financial impact on us as a family or the business, she would pick up the phone and say, David, I need to ask you this question. Yeah. And that was because when he made those phone calls, all he did was he made sure that if there was something, you wouldn't ring anybody else. You'd only ring him. And his success was he retired at the age of 55. Yeah. Which is stunning in its own way. And this is no word of a lie, Zane. My sister and I are both chartered accountants. And I always say the only accountant other than her children that my mum ever cried over was David the day he said he's retiring. Because it was so unexpected. But those first 15 years of her business career, he was there along that journey. And when he said he's no longer there, that brought an emotion to her that he's no longer going to be there to help me with those major decisions. And so, that's the key. And, you talked about accountants not thinking that way all that long ago.
Yeah.
All he was a professional friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what it was. All he knew is the way to help business owners is I am their professional friend. When they need me, they know they can trust me and they can call upon me. That's it.
Well, we all should strive to be like David, because that's incredible. I mean, I'm going to read it again for everybody. Accountants change lives, but not by producing sets of accounts. And if we can all strive towards that, and I try to tell my team this all the time, like, we aren't just doing accounting. This is real life, right? We're literally dealing with people's life or death. Like this is it. We deal with small business owners. For a lot of them, it is all their assets in this one little basket, and they're relying on us to give them information to be successful, right? Like that's the goal. They're hoping that they're investing the money in us, that we can get a relationship, look at the information, provide them with feedback if they're willing to take it.
Yeah.
Understand when to keep quiet and let them be. Understand when we need to talk up. And, we're sort of just re-looking at our values, and part of it is sort of we're committed to understanding our clients' goals and supporting their success with tailored solutions. And
Yep.
part of that tailored solution is, being that professional friend, giving them advice as it comes up. It could be from their own information or things changing in the world, and just sharing, information with them. And that's powerful advice. I read about it. I looked at it. I didn't think this would have such a big impact on me. I'm going to take away with me personally. I'm going to take away and go think about it even more, and how I can be more like David. How can I be more professional friend to my clients to make sure that they feel the same way, that we're supporting them in making their big business decisions.
Yeah, no. And as I say, I think the thing in all of this that we have to try and remember is today's day and age, with the way that technology has moved forward, when the difference now, if it was you or David even, today he would phone up having logged in and checked their financials. So he'd actually have something to talk to them about. And that's the advantage we as a profession have today, is that we can log into our clients' cloud accounting software and see you had a good week, a bad month, a good month. And you actually have something specific to them that you can discuss. Whereas then, all that David actually did was he didn't have access to that. But every business owner knows they've had a good week of sales, a bad week of sales. They've lost their top salesperson. Whatever it is that's keeping that business owner up at night, he or she will share with you in that phone call. But we can now do it with a little bit of additional financial information, which is more targeted to actually help them. I think that's the key difference.
Yeah, I mean, in the short way of saying, we have more information at our fingertips to be a better professional friend and really give them advice and be proactive in that advice, right? I'm sure David, a lot of the time, even though it was on the Rolodex, would wait for some of his clients would call him up like, hey, this is what we're running into. Where now we've got that information, look at him, be like, hey, we see this problem coming. We see not enough cash. Or, the opposite, you have too much cash. Let's figure out a way to go about it. So we can be even more proactive in trying to, change lives, which I think is incredible.
Yeah, no, agreed.
Okay, back to the career. Started out in the audit world for just under 6 years, right? That's about sort of...
That's right. Yeah, so about 6 years in audit and then similar time in tax.
Anything you liked or disliked about the world of audit and tax?
I think, like all these things, we all go through these things and they make us the people that we are. I think, although at the time I probably didn't appreciate the value of the work that I learned in audit, what it does allow you to do is interact with business owners, understand their problems, what their challenges are, but most importantly, gives you a really broad understanding of what business owners go through day in, day out, what drives them. And inevitably, some of those people, there will be things that they've said to you that drive, when now as a 50-something business owner, you look back and think, I remember speaking to this business owner, he or she had this, or this is a really good way that they worked. This is the way they looked after their staff. So all of those things have an impact on you. So I think from that point of view, but just working with good professional people, I think that's the key. If you've worked with good professionals, it helps you set your own standards at a level that they operated at, if not higher. Because when you go into the world, you're the leader. You want to set your own stall out as to what you expect of yourself. But actually, in today's world, it's not me that's doing the actual delivery. It's a group of people that work for me.
Yep.
And I think that's the piece always that you take away from that the people that I worked for, they set their stall out, and I was representing them every time I walked into a client's office or had a telephone interaction with them. That's what it was all about, that you had to be the best professional you could be. And if you follow that, I now have to set that benchmark, if you like, for everyone that works in our business.
Yeah. So you spent a decade in public accounting, and public accounting at times gets a bad rap, especially nowadays.
Sure.
You see it out there if you go to some of these Reddit lines and stuff like, oh, public accounting is such a waste of time. I personally felt the opposite, and I felt like I experienced so much in a short period of time because of my interaction with all these different business leaders, which I would have never had the opportunity to interact with if I just, gone outside of practice, right? I would have been stuck at some big company in an office dealing with my direct managers, where, in these places, dealing with CEOs, CFOs, just bookkeepers who knew things, right? And I felt like I got so much experience in just my 4 years there. What are your feelings towards public accounting and that sort of route as a career?
Well, I've shared with you my story as to the impact that it had on my parents and me as a person.
Yep.
I was a 9-year-old child when my parents started in business. By my mid-30s, I'd started a business. I had lots of ideas on the way, some when I was a child, teenager, and obviously everyone dismisses you because of that.
Yep.
And then missed opportunities in young adulthood. And then I never wanted to be that guy down in the bar who said, I had this idea and I had that idea. It was like, no, I've got to make it happen. And the gauntlet had been laid down by my dad saying, you think you can do it, get on a plane and make it happen. So I think all these things, I think the public accountant has a huge impact on the success or otherwise of the business owners that work with them. So I genuinely believe, in the statement that we make a difference. We absolutely do.
So let's talk about this business opportunity that you decided, after some encouragement by your dad, to jump an airplane and start off. Yep. Give us the frame of reference. What was your goal when you first started out?
I wanted a business So my parents obviously in retail and, got that to a reasonable level, but to a great extent, they were running the business. What I wanted was a business that if I wasn't there, could operate without me. So number one, that. But number two, I saw that having worked in two big four firms that really adopted technology. So everyone talks now about paperless audit files and the like. EY and KPMG were doing that 25 years ago. And so seeing the way that collaborative technology allowed people in one office to communicate to colleagues in another office without moving from their desk told me that actually it was possible, that you didn't physically have to be in a client's office or in an accountancy firm's office to do the work, first and foremost. And number two, there were all these bright accountants in India. And there must be a way that we can harness the technology, harness that skill set that's available, and turn it into a business. And so 20 odd years ago, that's what I started. I started the journey, tried to build a cloud platform way back in 2003. Finally, it went live in 2005, 2006. But that was the seed of the idea, was that great talent over in India with technology. And if we can deliver that to customers, obviously I was based in the UK, but the intention was always to make it an international offering.
Okay. So when over in India just got going, like how did it come about? Like what was strategy? What did you jump in? How do you go about this?
Yeah, so I jumped on a plane and, still got relatives there. So that meant I didn't have to pay for hotel rooms.
Mm-hmm.
So that was right. I'd say to my mum, can you ring your brother and say, yeah, Vipul's coming, and you have to feed him and put a roof over his head for a week or two. And he'd organise a taxi driver for me so I could go and meet people. So I met lots of people, and I'll be honest, the first 2-3 years, I made every mistake a rookie business owner could make. Trusted everyone, got the technology, was hard to build. Although I was an accountant who was proficient with technology, I wasn't a technology person. So although I learned a lot in that 2 years, 3 years, it created its own challenges. But I'm probably better for it because having made those mistakes, you learn very quickly because you're spending your own money. I'm spending my savings to make all of this happen. It's not like I've had lots of income from the business. I had to use my savings to make all of that happen. But, we did it. And alongside that, obviously I have the skills as a qualified tax advisor. I use that to supplement anything that the business was generating, which was very little at the time. So you use your skills to just keep the business funded. And that's what we did. And the rest, as I say, is history. But you have to keep paying the bills to get through to the other side.
So at the moment, it is an outsourcing firm. You're finding talent for people in other countries. I know, when I go to your website, it says UK, USA, and Australia standards. They've got all the knowledge, and is that sort of where the majority of the client base is now?
That is absolutely where the client base is. Yeah, very much so. So yeah,
mostly UK, or is it fairly evenly spread?
It's mainly UK, just through history. This is where Vipul's based, but increasingly growing an international offering. We have a full-time account manager in Australia, and we've just won a large contract in North America, which can't release anything on officially yet. Once I'm in a position to do so, you will see that. All of those things are just driving us to be a better business and a more international business.
Right. I mean, outsourcing is one of those things in the world, I guess, that sort of gets a bad name. Like, I offshore, I've got an office in South Africa. I use, talent in another country to supplement my team here in the US. But what makes What makes you guys different from all the other ones? Those ones that badger my LinkedIn inbox on a regular basis with anything from $2 an hour to $25 an hour of services.
Yeah.
How are you different?
Because, as I said, the whole concept was based on technology and good people. So if you start with those two things, and you have to think back, 2005, cloud wasn't a word that you associated with technology. And because I remember several years later on the radio, there was a piece about cloud, and I was like, oh, I'm missing out on something. And I rang my then IT manager, said, Peter, we need to be in the cloud, and he said, oh, Vipul, you're already in the cloud. I was like, oh, okay, that's great. That's great then. We're already in the cloud. Well, yeah. So for us, it was very much about making sure we challenged ourselves to be better all the time. And that was at a human level, but also on a technology level. And if that meant that we use technology that cut us out, we would do that. So, for example, you may be offering bookkeeping today, Zane, as an accountant in practice, but undoubtedly you don't manually enter all these invoices. If you can get your client to take their phone, upload the app that allows invoice capture, it means you get the data more accurately and faster into the accounting software. So we would have done that 10 years ago. And that's the key in all of this is challenge yourselves. Even if that means that we as a business might earn a little bit less per file, that's okay. Yeah. What you've got to look at is what's the bigger picture? Are we able to service more firms, more businesses as a result of adopting that technology? And is the experience better? And usually the answer to all of those questions is yes. Technology increases efficiency, but it also increases the opportunities for you to serve businesses, whether that's accountants or the wider business community. So I think that's probably what's always made us different to everybody else, because they all see hours on the doors as the only measure of success. Whereas actually for us, it's actually, if we've been open and we've been honest, because if I didn't tell you, and 6 months later, you discovered this great piece of technology, it's like, oh, Vipul, do you use this bit of technology? And I say, oh, yes. And you'll say, well, why didn't you tell me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas if I've told you and you've then not adopted it, that's a separate story.
Yeah.
But the important bit is I've shown you the way to deliver what we're doing in a better, more efficient, cost-effective way, because every business owner, and you'll know this, has their pressures, cost of living, etc. So they look at what they perceive as discretionary spend, and if they see the accountancy fees as discretionary spend,
which they do,
which they do, So if you keep challenging yourself, you make yourself in a position that you can serve them in a way profitably for you, and for them, they see, you know what, Zane's been good to me, or whoever it is that's serving them. I think that's the key in all of this.
Are your main clients in the sort of tax space, audit space, or accounting service space? Where do you sort of find your?
I always say anything an accountant or an auditor can do, set up their computer. That's what we help people do. So that's all service lines: accounts, tax, audit. There are key service lines.
Yeah, it feels like you've created a system where it's like what a lot of the big firms have done is sort of create those shared service departments. It feels like, from what you're telling me, and the use of technology and wanting to simplify, it's a great way for an office, especially maybe, I guess what they call medium-sized firms, anything up sort of over 20 people, where they can really create that shared services. The stuff that, let's be honest, a lot of people don't like doing. It's a little bit boring, but it's critical to the success of the firm. Can sort of be done.
Yeah, it's about creating the time for you for your own onshore staff to do more of the client-facing stuff. As we started the call about David, he made those calls. If you're confident in your team's ability to pick up the phone, you don't need to phone them.
Yeah,
they're more than capable of phoning them. That's what it's all about for me.
Yeah, and using the team from you allows them to put their feet up, roll that Rolodex out, and phone some clients up, and actually get that value added, that change people's lives type services. So that's super helpful.
That's absolutely right.
Now, let's be honest, right? Accounting from India has got a bit of a bad rap over the last few years.
Sure.
How do you counter that?
It's about building a culture of excellence,
Mm-hmm.
of honesty. So those two are core values. And if you do that and you build a team that share that and are around you for a period of time, and it's about you making the environment that they work from is interesting, exciting for them to come to, for you to be seen as the employer of choice. I think that's always the key. If you have that stability in your core group, people will always come and people will always go. That is just the nature of young people. I'm a fine one to talk. I had 4 jobs in my professional career before I started this business.
Mm-hmm.
But I was at each of them for sort of 2.5, 3 years plus. That's okay. But you have to create that environment that people feel valued. And if you do that and they understand what you stand for, I think that's the key in us being able to be seen. But you're right, in every walk of life there's good and bad. All we can do is set our own standards, and that's it. It's for others to decide where they sit. But we'd like to think that we've got clients who've been with us sort of a decade and a half or more, and that comes from always having that honest interaction. And it's not always just with me. Most of that, we're at a size now where I'm not involved in the production. I haven't been for a very long time.
Yep.
So all of that has to happen, but it also is based on systems. So as I said, we built our first cloud platform way back in 2005, 2006. And in a way, I call it my super manager. It allows our business to run, deliver consistently high levels of service. And that's always the key to having a more successful business. Make a good accountant a better accountant. An average accountant becomes a good accountant. A good accountant becomes an excellent accountant. And that's always the key.
Yeah, that's great. I really like that. What are the goals for AdvancedTrack? Sort of what's the future look like?
Well, I mean, in a world where technology can change so quickly, we're very aware, shall we say, of the challenges that are inevitably there. But as I say, by embracing it, what do you achieve? What you achieve is you question everything you do, not on a weekly basis. I think that's probably wrong, but on an ongoing basis, you employ good people within your business who allow you to challenge yourself and the people internally as to are you doing things or can you do things better? So to take that example, our CTO recently spent a couple of weeks with our teams going through, right, this is what you're doing. How can we do things better? Is there technology that we can adopt internally that will make what we do continue to be relevant at a price that customers are happy to continue paying? So I think that's always the key for me is don't ever think you're done, because the minute you do that, you're finished.
Yeah, I agree. If you're not consistently adapting, you're probably dying.
Yeah.
So focusing and staying relevant. I mean, I think every day I spend a little bit of time, maybe not necessarily during my work day, but it could be out on a walk or when I'm cooking dinner. Always thinking, is there something we can do better? Is there something that we're doing that maybe needs to be adjusted, refined? Some days I'm like, I can't think of anything, and that's fine. And other days I'll be like, shucks, I just looked at this other thing that somebody else was doing, and I really like the way they did it. I think it's better than the way we're doing it, so maybe we should, I'll send a message to my tech lead who will be like, oh gosh, what harebrained idea do you have right now? And be like, hey, can you look into this? And she'll say, yes, no problem. I'll add it to the, item number 95 on my list from you, and
Right.
we'll eventually get there. But you talk about a lot. You speak about technology, right? And AdvancedTrack is clearly on the forefront of technology innovation in accounting, and has been for a long time. That's part of your philosophy starting this business. As the average accountant, what advice would you give me to stay ahead of the curve when it comes to technology? Because, like you said, it's moving really, really quickly.
Yep.
And you could be one of those people that just jump into everything,
Yep.
which I probably don't recommend, mostly because we don't have enough time for it.
Yep.
But I do want to be able to stay in a place where I'm at least moving with the wave
Yep.
and staying ahead of the bunch. What advice do you have for me?
Keep reading, number one. Talk to your peers. We certainly see lots of collaboration between firms that historically you might have seen as competitors. I think there's huge amounts of collaboration across platforms. So whether you're a Xero firm, you're a QuickBooks firm, etc., there will be communities that you part of. Use that opportunity, because there'll always be somebody who will say, you might have a forum, where you say, I've got this problem, go and see what they've used to solve that problem. Never be afraid to ask what you think is a stupid question, because if you're thinking it, somebody else probably is as well. They've just not been brave enough to ask the question. So I think first and foremost, do that. And number two, I think the thing is, don't be scared, and you don't have to use it across your entire client base. The thing in all of these things is you can use a product with a handful of your clients, but just talk to them about it. Say, look, I want to test something. I think it might help. Would you be happy to go and test it for me? Yeah. And if you've got a good relationship with them, they're rarely going to say no, and all you're going to say to them is, what I want is, in a month's time or in 2 months' time, I just want to have a 5-minute, 10-minute call. That could be on phone or Zoom, Teams, etc. And say, look, this is what I wanted it to achieve. Do you think it helped me do that? Yeah. And if you do that, and if it works, great. Because most now are on a SaaS model. They don't make you sign up for 3,000 clients or something. Yeah, you put 5 on. Yeah. See how it works. If it works well, go for it. Do more of it. It's that to me is always the key. But don't sit on the fence and don't wait for it to happen. Because if you're waiting for the perfect answer, it's not going to happen. Did we have the perfect answer? We didn't have it 20 odd years ago. We absolutely don't have it today. We're just better at spotting it, but we're now a much bigger business. So are we as nimble as we were 20 years ago? Probably not. Because you've suddenly got to change the way it works for a whole group of clients. If you can do it seamlessly, that's great. Sometimes you need them to have input. So that to me is always going to be the two bits of advice. Ask your friends and then go and use it. They're probably the things that will help you become a more successful technology-based accountant.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, the whole idea of collaboration over competition has always been big for me. I know in my sort of local area that freaks people out a little bit, because I'm always willing to talk about it. But find your community, right? Go use social media, talk to people, get involved. You never know when you're going to meet somebody that ends up being a good partner. I have a couple of people that I grab lunch with on a regular basis. We do the same type of work, but for totally different industries, and it's a great place to talk about how we're managing people, how we're changing internal processes, what technology we're using. Especially, I'm in a pretty slow to adapt technology industry, being in the wine space. So talking to some of my, friends who are in spaces where people are moving on technology a lot quicker gives me great insight because they've tested more things or been able to. So I think that's always great advice. The second point there about trying stuff up, I think a lot of times there's a push out there in the market to be like, have your tech stack and only stick to your tech stack because that's the best way to be efficient, right? I've always taken the approach of, if a client's coming to us with a piece of technology that we maybe don't know, test it out, learn it. If it's working for them, let's first prove, is it actually working? And if it is, why is it working? Can we use it somewhere else? Could this be a great add to our tech stack that could add value to other people? So, don't get too rigid, I would say, especially if you're smaller and you can be nimble. Take those opportunities, learn from it. And I mean, one of your learns could be, this really sucks, guys. Like, there's a better option. Like, I know you think it's good, but it's actually terrible. Let's move on from it. But then at least right? Don't just dismiss that client out of hand just because they're using a piece of technology that you don't know or maybe haven't tried before.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But keep your core as stable as you can. That's
sure.
always the way to do these things.
Yeah, have those key pieces that you truly believe in. I always say, find the accounting software that you're going to specialize in. That's always a great place to start. Those people who just like take on anything, you can never really develop anything solid, especially in terms of a standard operating procedure. And then build some core pieces around it, and then the rest is all fun and games, right? Like, let's find the piece that works. And like you said, technology keeps moving really fast. So what is the best piece today is probably not going to be the best piece in 6 months, 12 months time, especially as the AI wave keeps hitting the accounting space on a continuous basis.
Yeah.
Let's jump into sort of some of the lessons and leadership that you've gone through in your life. You've obviously got this great piece of advice from David as you got into the accounting space, but is there any other advice that you received in your life that sort of sticks out, that's guided you on your journey?
Yeah, I had a year's internship in a television company, and the chief accountant there was very young. He made chief accountant at the age of 27. This is a business with about 1,500 people working in them. And he said to me, Vipul, and this may sound counterintuitive to what lots of people hear out there, but he said, don't go and work for one of the big guys. He said, go and work for the next level down. He said, learn to be a real accountant. And then if you want to go and work for the big guys, go and do it. He says, what typically happens, and obviously he had auditors arriving, fresh-faced, 21, 22 years old. And he said, look, they come in and they're just great at debtors, or they're just great at creditors. Yeah. But they're not good at anything else. He said, if you go and work the next level down, you'll know how to manage a client, you'll know how to manage relationships, and most importantly, you'll be able to you'll know how to look at everything in a business. Yeah. From the stock to the fixed assets, etc. I won't bore people with what an accountant does, but he said, you'll know everything about the business. But then when you go to the big firms, you'll excel. You'll do really well. And it was proven. I went to join EY and I had multiple promotions. Yeah. Why did I have multiple promotions? Because I'd already lived it. I'd already breathed it in a smaller firm. Yeah. It wasn't a small firm, but it was just a smaller firm. But because of that skill set, and I didn't appreciate it whilst I was there, but I absolutely appreciated it when I got all those promotions. Yeah. And that was a consequence of that one conversation that he had with me as a 21-year-old intern. It was a year in the middle of my degree.
Yep.
And that was probably the best bit of advice that I received.
Yeah. I mean, sort of my career, when I was at KPMG, so a big firm, but I was happy to put my hand up for the small projects where, I might have been a first year where I was giving small entities on like a big client, but on those ones, also I was running the whole project and just working directly with the manager. And I got to see every single aspect, got to talk to CEOs. I learned way more on those small projects than I learned on the big projects. The only thing I learned on the big projects was how to manage time. On the small projects, I learned how to manage people and have real conversations.
Indeed. So same story. So yeah, great.
Yeah. I love it. This is all great advice, making me feel good inside that I've made some good decisions along the way, which is always great. Let's talk about leadership.
Yeah.
Because you clearly are a leader. You run a very successful business. What is your sort of values towards leadership and your decision-making processes?
It's probably got me into trouble sometimes, particularly when I was an employee, shall we say. But I don't think it's something that you should take lightly. But being authentic is the key, because everyone knows where they stand. Yeah. They don't expect an inconsistent answer from you. Yeah. That what would Vipul think? Yeah. I think that's the key in all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That if you're authentic, people know that this is what Vipul would expect. And having that open door. Yeah. That's the one thing that there was a handful of mentors in my professional career. They always had an open door. Yeah. That even if it's the smallest of things, Vipul, come and talk to me about it. And that's something I've carried through in what I do now. That, obviously technology makes all of that accessible, even if they're not sitting next to me anymore. But just that ability to, Vipul, have you got 10 minutes? Can we jump on Teams? Can we jump on Zoom? Or can you just call me on WhatsApp or FaceTime and let's have this conversation? So I think that's the thing that I was thinking this is what I've told the client. Are you happy with that? And the no blame culture. Yeah, I think, the minute you start blaming people for every, look, we're human. We make good decisions. We make bad decisions. Some are just less bad than others. But I think once you start the blame culture, people say, well, actually, I was trying to do my best. Why am I being blamed for this?
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you have those two pieces, I think that absolutely will help you come out the other side an awful lot better. And people will then be more honest with you in admitting mistakes, because otherwise what happens is people bury mistakes and it comes out afterwards. Yeah. They'll have gone, and then suddenly all these problems come to the fore. Whereas actually they would never have left if they'd felt confident that you weren't going to take them to task over things. And as I say, I certainly found that with some of the mentors that I had in my professional career, that, they said, Vipul, I don't agree with you, but this is why I don't agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you take that approach, yeah, people will be open and honest with you. And then they will stay with you for the long term.
Yeah, I think a supportive, open, trustworthy relationship leads to an environment where we make less bad decisions, right? Because people feel comfortable to come to you to ask first, right? Like they know, like, hey, I feel correct about this. This is what I'm thinking. These are my thoughts behind it. Do you agree or disagree? Versus, please help me. I'm too scared to make a mistake. They don't stick around. They tend to make more bad decisions because they're so nervous of making the wrong decision. It's a good way to build leadership, sort of with honesty, compassion, and I like the idea of being consistent. I think that's really helpful when the team understands that, if I go to Vipul, this is who he is. It's not because I'm Joe Schmo in the firm, he's going to treat me one way, and because I'm manager Bill in the firm, he's going to treat me another way. It creates a good environment that leads to collaboration, that leads to good results, which leads to happy clients, which allows them to be successful, which is great.
But equally, if there is a problem, if they've told you rather than the client has told you, yeah, isn't it better if you actually pick up the phone and say, look, they've just told me this has happened. Yeah, I'm just manning up as the boss. Phone you before you phone me. Yeah.
And here's the solution, right? Because you've had a chance. They've been open to you in time. You can come into that conversation, becomes so much easier for the client. It's not like we screwed up and things are broken. It's now, hey, we screwed up. This is how we're going to fix it. This is going along. Really sorry. Let's move on.
Yes, absolutely. And it's how you deal with that actually will lead to hopefully a stronger and collaborative relationship, whether it's an internal customer or an external customer.
It's great. You've been doing AdvancedTrack now for over 20 years. As you said, there's been some mistakes along the way, but lots of success. Yeah. Sitting here today, what advice do you wish you had received on day one that would have helped you along your journey?
Patience. And this is somebody who obviously grew up in a business environment, who knows that, that is earned. It's not guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that, and however much you think it's going to cost you, it's going to be more. it's a bit like a building project.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you've ever had the builders in, the quote that you had has never been the bill that you paid. So I think it's that. I think it's patience, knowing that it will take time, and just be ready, and it will be a rough ride. And they're probably the key bits of advice that I would give any business owner that, we're a 21-year-old success.
Love that. Vipul, I've really, really enjoyed this conversation today. A couple of last questions to close out. One, can you share anything with us from a personal side to get to know you as a person?
I spoke about sports. I think sports has been part of my life from the time I was at school. So I was in the soccer team, athletics team. I was a sprinter at school. But I've always found that sports has been a great leveler in terms of even in the workplace.
Yep.
So I said I was an intern at the TV station. What that meant was when you stepped onto the football pitch, everyone was the same. So the MD used to turn up most Fridays to play, but I would never have had a conversation with him in the lift.
Yeah.
But on the football pitch and in the changing rooms and the walk back to the office, I got to speak to him just as a human. He might be the boss of 1,500 people, but that 15-minute walk back to the office, he was speaking to Vipul. So I would say to anybody, team sports are absolutely an essential part of helping you become a better human and a better team player. And probably a lot of what I do has been because I did play sports. And you have to have 11 players on a pitch who are all trying to achieve the same thing. And that's been an absolute key. And it's absolutely made a massive difference to me. And now I'm a swimmer. But in between, I also started half marathons and 10Ks. So, because it was the one thing I didn't have to do at a specific time. So when I became self-employed, I couldn't guarantee to all the lads I was going to turn up on a Tuesday at 6:30 every Tuesday.
Yeah.
So what could I do? Well, I could go running. Yeah. Because all you need are trainers and running kit.
Yeah, no, I love that. I'm always a big believer in sport, especially team sport, teaching people very valuable skills around teamwork, communication. And a lot of the time, that whole formula of like 1 + 1 = 3, it's the first time you can really see it happen in real life. And playing in teams as well as coaching teams, I've seen that like an average team can be the best team if they're willing to work together and hold each other accountable.
Yeah, totally.
Great. The last thing we love to do on ProteaConversations is finish with some rapid fire questions. So if you're ready, I have 5 questions for you.
Okay. All right. I'll try and do my best.
Question number 1. If you're on death row, what would your final meal be?
That one's easy. Okra. It's my favorite dish.
Oh, wow.
By a country mile.
Nice. Great. Do you prefer mountains or the ocean?
Probably mountains, just because it's easier to access. You could get to it most days, most weeks. Oceans, they're a little further, certainly where we are anyway.
Yeah. And not always the most ocean-friendly weather where you're at either.
No, indeed.
What is a quality you appreciate in a good friend?
I think we've touched on it. Honesty, that's the one thing. And non-judgment. But that's probably 2. But honesty is the number 1.
Great. What is a favorite book you would recommend everybody reads?
Wow. The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari.
I've heard good things about it. On my list.
Brilliant book. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. It certainly will challenge most people's beliefs, and I say that as a business owner, but I think it does make you understand what your real values are if you read it.
Great. Last question. What is your favorite pet piece of technology that you use that makes your life better?
My AirPods. Yeah. So even, it sounds simple, very simple, but even when I'm on a phone call, I can carry on doing stuff if I need to. It makes my life immensely easier. So Very simple, but straightforward.
And with that, we ended another ProteaConversations. Thank you for joining us in this journey of learning and inspiration. Today we've gained insight from our guests and taken another step towards understanding the diverse tapestry of leadership in business and accounting. Remember, each conversation is a step towards the positive transformation of business leaders. We hope our discussion has given you valuable takeaways to apply in your own career and life. Don't forget to subscribe to ProteaConversations on YouTube and Spotify so you never miss an episode. We'd also love to hear your thoughts and experiences, so connect with me on social media channels. I'm most active on LinkedIn and would love you to join the conversation. Join us next time for more engaging stories, advice, and conversations that matter. Until then, keep striving for excellence, embracing growth. Thank you for listening, be kind, and goodbye from ProteaConversations.